president. I hope not for life. We meet every month to discuss aspects of end of life and aging and stuff like that as we proceed in our mission to educate the San Diego community about their end of life choices. We invite you to come. All of our meetings are free and open to the public. And on even months, we do our Right to Die film series, which is a lot of fun. And we do that at the Mission Valley Library. We do it there because this is expensive. If anybody knows a better place to meet, we'd be glad to move, but this seems to suffice for now. And also, if anybody would like to join us in the governance of this organization, we would like to hear from you. We have several board members working hard back there. I see Bill Simmons on the board, and Pat Fisher on the board, and Will Wakely on the board. He's been with us since the beginning, 30 years ago. This is our 30th anniversary of existence in San Diego. So to celebrate, we're having a special all-day conference on everything we have learned in 30 years to achieve a peaceful death, including what we know about dementia. And we have some amazing guest speakers and local speakers as well. Our guest speakers include Derek Humphrey, the founder of the Hemlock Society and the author of Final Exit. Rob Jean-Pierre, the president of the World Federation of Right to Die Societies, a Dutch physician who knows all about what's going on in the world. You would really be surprised to know. And also what's going on in the Netherlands, which is the most advanced country. So he can tell you all about it. And Catherine Tucker, who has been a lawyer for what is Compassionate Choices. She was with Compassion in Dying, and now she's executive director of End of Life Liberty Project. I heard her argue in 1997 before the US Supreme Court in a very important but unsuccessful struggle to get assisted dying declared a constitutional right. She's a very good speaker, you'll love this, and all of our local speakers. So our program is in the back, and I'm glad, I don't know, to say that we're filling up, and we may reach our quota and have to turn people away before even the date of October 10th, which is the day where the prices go up. So if you are planning to come, don't wait, because we may not have a seat, or even more importantly, food for you. So, and our next meeting is October 15th, is that right? Yes, third Sunday, always the third Sunday, always at 1:30. And our movie is called You're Not You, and it stars Hilary Swank, one of my favorite actresses, award-winning actress, as a pianist who develops ALS, really bad disease. I think you'll like it. This film series is really a lot of fun, and we always have a discussion afterwards. What did I forget? Let's see. Okay. I did say whoever would like to be on the board, please let us know, because we can't run the place with
Bring up the expo.
What?
The expo.
Oh, thank you. Carrie, you should come up here and talk about the expo. Thank you. Oh, and Jim's right there, yeah. The Union Tribune has an annual expo on successful aging. Obviously, you don't need to come there, but you might have to bring some friends who are not as successful as you are. And it's this year at the Del Mar Fairgrounds, and we have a booth. And since dying is part of aging, they seem to accept the fact that we're going to be there talking about what we do here. So unfortunately, it's $13 to park your car, but after that it's free and it's fun, and it should be very good. That's Carrie Perkins back there on our board, and sitting next to him is Jim Black. A while ago, and in fact several times, we asked if anybody knows people who would be somebody else's durable power of attorney for health care. We have a lot of, especially older, especially women, alone, who do not have anybody to appoint as their health care agent. It's a very serious problem. We've had it now for 30 years. And Jim Black back there has volunteered to be some people's healthcare agent. He's had a lot of experience. Jim, raise your hand and don't knock off the halo over your head. This is not an easy thing to do, and somebody with experience doing it who's willing to do it really deserves sainthood. So if you need somebody like Jim, see him afterwards, the guy with the halo on top. Okay, so today we have a very interesting program with a lot of speakers, none of whom I know. So please forgive me if I get the names all mixed up. Dr. Mitz Tabita arranged this program. He happens to be in Seattle, so I'm doing this blind. But every so often, every 3 or 4 years, we talk about what to do with your body, because our mission is to achieve a peaceful death. But that's not all there is to it, because there is the body. So what do you do with it that could be worthwhile, or could be inexpensive, or could plan ahead that you could take the hassle out of all this? Of course, you're dead, so it doesn't make any difference to you, but if you plan ahead, you can save a lot of aggravation for your family. So that's what this is about. And I'm going to start with Keith Larson. And I have to read this. Please excuse me, I don't know anything here. He's director of the Tissue Outreach UC San Diego Life Sharing Organ and Tissue Donation Organization. There might have been a comma in there, but I don't know where it was. So Keith, take over, and I think you know more about what you're doing than I do, so, okay. I'm going to sit on the throne here.
Okay. Thanks, Faye. Everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to thank the Hemlock Society for inviting us today to speak to you folks. Hopefully we're going to answer a few of your questions. Our programs have been asked to speak to you today regarding end-of-life choices and that you and your family can make. The speakers will inform you on what we do, how we do it, and how we can be contacted if you have any further questions. And at the conclusion of our presentations today, we'll open the floor for any questions. So, like Faye said, my name is Keith Larson. I'm the Director of Tissue Outreach for Life Sharing, UCSD. I'm going to start out the program today discussing organ and tissue donation. And then we'll have presentations by Scott with UCSD Whole Body Donation, John with the San Diego Memorial Society, and Deanne with our local funeral home. She's an embalmer, funeral director at one of our local funeral homes. All right, so let's get started. Basically, I'm a former funeral director, so I dealt with organ and tissue donation for transplant for many years before getting involved in the transplant field. Since then, that point in time, I've been in the field for about 30 years. So I've seen a lot, dealt with a lot of folks, dealt with a lot of these companies and programs that you're going to be hearing today. But it's a very important program. So also, my family and I have been touched by donation. I'm a donor family member and a tissue recipient. And this tissue transplant works, and so does organ donation. It's really helped a lot of folks throughout the past and currently. Life Sharing is a not-for-profit, federally designated organ procurement organization for the San Diego County and Imperial County. And we work closely with all of our hospitals here in town, a lot of the skilled nursing homes, and we provide service to a lot of our funeral homes too, throughout both counties, giving them education about organ and tissue donation. Each year, the need for organ and tissue donation increases. Now, currently, there are more than 116,000 people waiting for a life-saving organ transplant. Additionally, throughout the year, 450,000 people will need tissue transplants. That means bone, skin, cardiovascular transplants. And another 45,000 people will need a cornea transplant so they can regain their sight again. These are incredibly important life-enhancing procedures that dramatically improve the quality of life of many recipients and their families. So Life Sharing is committed to the life-saving and enhancing efforts of transplantation. We strive to be the leader in organ and tissue donation throughout education, collaboration, and the provision of quality service. Our purpose is to recover hearts, livers, kidneys, pancreas, intestines for transplant to save lives. In addition, Life Sharing is a tissue bank, and the tissues that can be recovered are bone and skin and cardiovascular. Bone for many orthopedic uses, a lot of spinal fusions, all sorts of different types of sports injuries. Donated skin is used to help with burn patients and also assist with other types of surgical advances. And donated cardiovascular tissue can assist with heart defects and bypass surgery. And not only do these organs and tissues help adults, they help a lot of children as well. So if an infant passes away at birth, that heart possibly could be transplanted into another birth baby that had just been recently born and help save their lives too. Also, there's 2 valves in the heart that can be transplanted into another person, so that will help 2 individuals. And the saphenous veins from your leg, from your hip down to your ankle, that can help with heart bypass surgery. So. Also, an organ donor can save lives up to about 8 people, and a tissue donor can enhance 75 or more lives, depending on what's needed at that time. And most people can be potential tissue donors at the time of death, and any age can donate for transplant and for research. There's no cost associated with organ and tissue donation, and you can still have an open casket viewing when you donate organs, tissues, and eyes. So if you're interested in any additional information and would like to sign up to be an organ and tissue donor, you can go to Donate Life California website, and that's www.donatelifecalifornia.org. And also you can sign up to be a donor at your local DMV office when you renew or receive your driver's license. And if you have any further questions, you can contact Life Sharing at our office number at 619-543-7225, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It was a pleasure speaking to you today, and thank you to the Hemlock Society for having us speak today. And I'm going to introduce Scott Barton. He's the director at the UCSD Whole Body Donation Organization for Research.
Thank you, Keith. Like Keith said, my name is Scott Barton, and thank you very much for having me here. I oversee the body donation program at UCSD School of Medicine. And basically our program is when somebody passes away, they donate their body to the medical school, and we use that body to teach our students and for research. And the use of each donor varies depending on a lot of different factors, but those are the primary purposes, with about 90% of that being education. And the education that is brought about by this donation is medical students, pharmacy students. It is graduate medical education, which are residents and fellows that are learning different surgical procedures, different ways to treat patients, and to doctor of pharmacy, doctor of physical therapy, nursing programs. So there's a wide range. We also, our donors are used to teach the Navy medical students as well. So basically any medical profession that is in the San Diego area uses donors that come to our program. And so we have, roughly 400 donors each year that come to our program, and people make that choice for different reasons. The primary reason is altruism. They want to make a difference, or they've had a disease that has affected them and they want that, their body to be able to use to further research on that particular disease. And then some people make it as a financial choice because there is no cost for donation. And then, some of them, some people just, they don't have any particular wishes, and their family decides for them after they have passed away. So, the primary purpose of our staff and what we do is we prepare all of the donors once they come to our program, and then we track what education needs to take place, and there's a process where every educator, every professor has to make a request to use a donor, and then it goes through kind of a vetting process, and so we make sure that they're following all of the proper procedures, and it's a real educational or research purpose. And then after the donor's body is used, and then we do the cremation, and we scatter the cremated remains at sea. We also set up a memorial service that we put on each year, where we do all of the logistical support, and our students do the actual presentation. So they will speak, they will play different musical instruments, and these are the first year medical students who have just completed the anatomy course for the year, and then once each year we have roughly 750 to 1,000 people that will attend, all family members of people who have donated or friends. And then we also, like I said, after the donor is used, we do the cremation and scatter the cremated remains at sea. And one of the questions we get a lot is if we can have the cremated remains returned to a family, and we're not able to. And so in a case like that, we refer them to another school that is close by, Loma Linda University or University of Southern California. So if anybody has questions, well, actually, let me back up. One of the things that's different, you don't register for our program through the DMV or through Donate Life California. We work with Life Sharing. We share a lot of the same donors, but the process is different. You actually have to contact us and register directly with us. And so if you are interested, or you know someone who is, they can contact us. Our information is in the brochure that I brought, and also on our website, and all of that is listed in the brochure. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Our next speaker is John Nugent. He's the president of the board of the San Diego Memorial Society here in San Diego. So, John?
Well, thank you, and thank you for inviting the San Diego Memorial Society. I recently became the volunteer chair of the board of the San Diego Memorial Society, and I'm very honored to serve in that capacity. I served on the board of another memorial society in another state at one time and found it very fulfilling, so was pleased when I was asked to serve this. The San Diego Memorial Society partners with select mortuaries throughout the San Diego County to provide cremation and burial plans for members at negotiated prices. So some people call us a death buying club because you become a member and then we negotiate the prices for you. And we do that on an annual basis. So come January, the prices for next year will be sent out or provided on our website. We're trying to move to an automated service now to save some money. So we offer 6 different plans. 4 of the plans are different types of cremation: direct cremation with returns to you, direct cremation with scattering at sea, a cremation with a memorial service, a cremation with a traditional funeral service. And then we also offer an immediate burial or the traditional funeral services. And all of those are at negotiated prices for our members. And you can get on our website, it's just Google San Diego Memorial Society, and all of our prices and the mortuaries that we work with are listed there, so you can see the different options. We have a direct cremation, which is an immediate cremation for $675. So that's a negotiated price that's substantially less than what is offered at some other locations. We're negotiating with the mortuaries right now, but we know that come January 1st, we will be able to continue to offer a direct cremation for under $700, and that's one of our goals, is to make it affordable. It's a $50 fee, one-time fee, it's a lifetime membership fee for $50. And then if you're traveling or you transfer to someplace else, you can transfer that to another memorial society. There are 100 of them throughout the United States. Or if you die in another location, then we can put you in touch with that memorial society, but you would need to honor their prices there. We can't guarantee that the same prices that we have here. Or you can be transported back to here. We just recently had somebody who died in San Francisco, and so we were able to transport the body back down here so that they could use the services here. One of the things that we do is we monitor the quality of our providers, and if there's any consumer complaints, we act for our members in that regard and work with the mortuaries to resolve any of those kind of things. So there are some brochures on the back table also about the San Diego Memorial Society, but we would welcome you to become part of our membership and join us at our annual meeting come next April.
Thanks, John. Valuable information there. A lot of things changing all the time. Our next speaker is Deanne. She is with the El Cajon Mortuary here in El Cajon. And she's going to speak to you just a few minutes about what their funeral home does and maybe some other options that you might want to consider. Thanks.
Hello. Sorry, can you hear me? Sorry. My name is Deanne. I'm a licensed funeral director and embalmer here in California. And I work with El Cajon Mortuary and Humphreys Mortuary in Chula Vista. El Cajon and Chula Vista. I'm the embalming supervisor there. So I see everybody that comes through. I'm going to talk to you today about just some options you have in dealing with funeral homes and mortuaries. There's a lot of information, so I'm giving you a really super condensed quick version of this. More or less, there's two types of disposition when you're dealing with a funeral home. There's cremation and there's burial. And there's several options for each. With your cremation, and John touched on some of these already, you have a direct cremation, and that would be your basic cremation with no services. You can have services on your own, but no services through the funeral home, no memorial service at our facility, anything like that. You have a cremation with a memorial service. That would be a cremation and use of our staff and our facilities for your memorial. You can have a cremation with a viewing. A lot of people don't actually know that. So you can still have your traditional funeral service and then have a cremation done afterwards. And you can have your cremation with your viewing and funeral service. So you have the entire package, but then you don't have to worry about caskets or burial plots or anything like that afterwards. Some of the dispositions for cremation, your basic dispositions, are of course burial. You can bury in a columbarium or in ground burial like you would a casket. You can have home retention. Your family can keep your urn at home. You can have a scatter at sea, and that can be done either through a funeral home or on your own. And the funeral arranger of your choice can help you arrange that if you want to do that on your own. And then several of the cemeteries have what they call a scatter garden. It's not exactly like being buried, but it's being interred in the cemetery, but in a garden-like setting. There's also several non-traditional things you can do with cremated remains. I'll just name a few of them. You can have an aerial scattering or a land scattering. In California, there's a lot of restrictions on that, but a funeral home can help you find out what areas you can do that in. There are several companies that offer jewelry made from cremated remains, life gems, diamonds, different colored diamonds or stones made from cremated remains. You can have a memorial tree planted with your cremated remains. You can have them put into fireworks and shot over open water. They can actually be launched into space. You can have a helium balloon release where they're put into a helium balloon and let go, and about 3 miles up when the balloon pops, you're scattered. There's actually companies that have coral reefs under the ocean, and you can have your urn placed in the coral reef and become part of that environment. And you can have them mixed in paint and have somebody paint a portrait with your cremated remains. There's so many unique options. You can go online and look up a lot of them yourself. You can actually look on Google if you go in cremated remains options. You can have a vinyl record made. There's so many different things out there. It would take me all day to list all of them. There are a few important things to know about cremation though, when dealing with a funeral home. Embalming is never required for cremation. Don't let anybody tell you that it is. You're not required to purchase a casket for cremation. California does require a minimum of a rigid cardboard container with a lid, but a casket is not required. There's actually no requirement for an urn in California. Your funeral home that you choose is going to show you several options, and they'll all be wonderful, but you can be put in a coffee can, a bottle of champagne. I'm actually going to be put in my little metal Wonder Woman lunchbox because it's my favorite. I mean, you really can put it in. And just for your information, in California, we do have to file a permit when somebody dies in order to perform a cremation. And just to give you an idea, that generally in California takes about 5 to 7 working days. It can be faster, it can take longer, but that's kind of the general. Of course, your other option is full body burial. There's several types of services for that too. You have your direct burial, where you're just interred in a cemetery, there's no services, there's no family present. You can have a graveside service. It's a little less formal, there's no funeral service, you just have your little service at the cemetery there. And then you can have viewings, funerals, however big you want to make the celebration. And then the final option is burial at sea. That's generally something we only see with veterans because it's offered as a veteran's benefit through the Navy, but there are organizations that your funeral arranger can get you in touch with that will do a full body burial at sea. There's some non-traditional options for burial as well. You can have a green funeral. You can request from your funeral home to have a green embalming, which is the chemicals that are used that have no formaldehyde, no harsh chemicals in it. And there actually is one cemetery, there's I think 2 cemeteries in the entire United States that are considered green cemeteries. But there's one here in California, in Northern California, where you can be buried and there's no headstones, it's a very natural environment. You could be cryogenically frozen. There are places that do that. I believe in my research, there's actually some places that'll still do the mummification, although it's not very common. And there's actually a new type of disposition that they're working on now. There's one funeral home in Florida that's almost ready to start doing it. Instead of cremation, it's more of like a liquefaction process, but it's not available in the United States yet, but it will be in the near future. A couple important things to know about burial. Again, embalming is not required for a burial. Several funeral homes will require it for a viewing, and that's for sanitation purposes, for appearance, but it's not required for a burial itself. And you don't have to purchase a casket at a funeral home. In my experience, you have a lot better experience doing it from a funeral home, but there are casket stores, there are online places. Don't recommend it, but it can. You can do that. And again, the permit we need for that burial is about a 5 to 7 day wait. The last thing I want to talk about real quick, because a lot of people don't know this, is veterans benefits. There are a lot of benefits available to veterans, and sometimes I meet with people that have no idea. So as a veteran, you are entitled to a free burial at a national cemetery. I don't know if you knew that. You're actually entitled to free scatter at sea by the Navy. It's unattended by the family. The Navy does it when they go out, when they're deployed, but they do send a certificate to let you know when and where that happened. The Navy also does full body burial at sea for veterans. You're entitled to have military honors at your service. You are awarded an American flag. And if you were being buried in a non-military cemetery, they'll also help you attain a free headstone marker. And for retired veterans, you get a chaplain and you get pallbearers for your service as well. And then everybody's entitled to the military honors. That's pretty much all the information I have. I do have some gray folders there in the back. They have a copy of either a copy like this or a photocopy of the cemetery and funeral purchases information. There's a lot of good information in here. It covers the law, it covers who is considered a next of kin. It covers a lot of things that I talked about today, but pre-arrangements, things like that. It's a lot of good information that you should arm yourself with before you go in to make arrangements. And those folders also have a sticker in them with my email address. So if you have any questions at all, feel free to email me anytime and I'll get back to you. Thank you.
Wow, was that informative or what? I think that's terrific. Our 4 speakers are terrific. Thank you again. I'm just going to start off with a question. I'll let Keith direct the questioning here, but remember last time we talked about it, you could belong to the Memorial Society, but also be a body donor to UCSD, and if for some reason that didn't work out, you would have the Memorial Society as an alternative. Am I totally confused about that? Yes. Do we have, is that a mic, Angela, next to you, and does it work?
Faye, could you announce that this is being recorded?
Oh, yes. As Ken Watson, who is our recorder, said, this is being recorded. So if you don't want your voice on our tape, don't ask a question.
Okay, so you can be both a body donor and belong to a Memorial Society. So if something happens where we're not able to accept your donation, then, which it is rare, but it could happen, then you would have a backup plan in place where you could have arrangements set up with a funeral home.
So let me just say that I'm a registered as a body donator, both as a tissue and whole body, and I also am a member of the society. And if they accept me, you know, I kind of do it hoping that they will accept me, but if they reject me, then I have the Memorial Society to back up on. And if they do accept me, then it's just a gift to the Memorial Society as a nonprofit organization. So I think it's a win-win in both cases.
Keith, do you want to handle? I'm happy to answer the questions, but I may.
Either way. You want me to?
This won't reach over there.
Oh, that's okay, I got one right here. This is the first time we put our panel together before, so we're kind of learning as we're going too. And I've learned a few great things from Deanne and from John and from Scott. So does anybody have any questions for, oh, we got a whole bunch, okay. Well, let's start on this side of the room. Yes, ma'am.
Do we have a roving mic, by the way? Susan?
Yes.
Oh, we do.
Oh.
Oh, thanks, Susan.
Okay, we'll start right here and then we'll come back to you.
My husband has paperwork for the body donation program at UCSD. He filled it out about 5 or 6 years ago as dementia. Is there a problem with having paper that was filled out a while ago? Is there a limit to that? And as his reserve power of attorney, can I sign things for him about his body donation programs?
So in answer, I'll answer kind of both parts of it. So there is no problem as long as he was of sound mind when he completed the forms, then they're acceptable. You do want to have them sent in to our program because we cannot accept the donor to our program until we see the paperwork. So what happens sometimes is people will pass away at home under hospice care, and it could be in the middle of the night, And until we see their paperwork, we can't send somebody there to pick them up. And that can cause a lot of difficulties unless you have a fax machine or a scanner where you can email it at home in the middle of the night. It really can be a difficult thing for family members. So you always want to send it in ahead of time just to make sure that you're registered. Then we send a card and an acceptance letter, so you have a donor card. And to the second part of your question, somebody with a durable power of attorney can sign our body donation program paperwork to register somebody. And the next of kin can too. So if there is no durable power of attorney, your spouse, you would be able to sign.
Because he has this rather unknown type of dementia, is there a place that would be specifically interested in having his brain?
So our program doesn't allow directed donations, but what we do is we take all of the medical information that's provided to us. And so, for example, we have a researcher right now that's working on MS. So when we have donors that have MS, we contact him so that he's able to recover the brain, because that's what he's studying. And so we do that. And there is, there's all sorts of research that takes place: Alzheimer's, ALS, MS, for some neurological ones, diabetes. So there's a lot of different ones that take place that can change, in 5 years to something completely different. So there's no way to guarantee that the donor is actually going to be used for that particular pathology, but there is a high probability that we would be able to use a donor for a particular disease.
Thank you very much.
There is a brain observatory.
No, it's not.
No, the woman in green back here. Over here.
I'm Nancy Conklin, and I'm a hospice chaplain. And I have a question. I have my donor card. My husband has his donor card, although he is Navy veteran. Can you have your usable parts donated first and then the entire body that's left?
Yes, you can. Yeah, we have, between us and Life Sharing, we have a lot of shared donors. So we have people that will donate, they have their organs have been donated, or their skin or bone or eyes have all been donated, and they come to our program afterwards.
That's our goal, is to use everything usable.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it go to however it can be of value.
Yeah,
And
and
my second question, and then I will sit down, it says do not autopsy. If, as a patient or as a person who knows that they are terminally ill and chooses death with dignity, is there still a reason that they do not have to go through autopsy?
so we do accept donors with autopsies now. And we actually have a new donor card that all of that information is taken off of there. But it's preferable if an autopsy is not performed, but if the medical examiner deems that there is a reason why they have to do it, we will still accept that donor. And we use their donation in a slightly different way, because at that point their internal organs are no longer going to be usable for our education, but we do a lot of surgeries that our students will practice. So it could be a knee replacement or a hip replacement, or so there's a lot of different things, procedures that can be done, and so we still accept donors like that. We didn't used to in the past, but we do now.
Good question.
And we also will for transplant too, post-autopsy. But with autopsies, it depends on the mode of death. If there's a question about it, you might want to have the autopsy performed for insurance purposes too. So that's kind of what I learned when my dad passed away. So.
Excuse me, I think that Nancy's asking about if you ingest Seconal or something under the End of Life Option Act. Does that negate your use wholeness as an organ donor? Is that what you're getting at?
It shouldn't be for both of our programs because it's a painkiller barbiturate, so it shouldn't pose any problem as long as there's no, other types of medications that we're unaware of. So gotta kind of be careful with that.
What kind of painkiller was that?
Seconal, secobarbital.
Yeah, acetobarbital.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Yes, sir.
Questions. Concerning your CSD body donation program, you mentioned something about somebody being rejected if the paperwork is all legally prepared. Why would you reject it?
So there's a few reasons why we can't accept somebody to our program. If they have hepatitis B, hepatitis C, or HIV, or Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. Those are the 4 diseases that will prevent a donor from being accepted. The other thing that would prevent a donor from being accepted is if they're over 350 pounds. And then there are times where somebody is registered with us, but we aren't notified in time to accept their donation. So, and usually that period of time is about 2 weeks. So if it's more than 2 weeks after someone has passed away, we're not usually able to accept them.
Thank you. And secondly, witnesses. I have UCSD papers with me. Witnesses or notary, which is?
Witnesses. You want to have 2 witnesses. It could be anybody that's an adult, as long as they aren't associated with our program. So I can't witness it, but any other adult can witness the signature.
Thank you very much.
Other questions?
Right here.
Is this on?
Yes.
This is for Scott. Can family members or someone close to you prevent the body donation even though you have a card?
So if there are certain circumstances where a family member could. So I'll give you an example. Let's say that somebody has not registered with us, they pass away, and they have 2 children, and no durable power of attorney for healthcare and no spouse is surviving. Those 2 children get to make the decision. Both of them have to sign our paperwork. If both of them are not willing to sign our paperwork, then we're not able to accept the donation. So in circumstances like that, a family could. But other than, if somebody fills out the paperwork for themselves, the only other way, and they're registered with us, the only other way that the donation could be prevented is if the family never notifies us that the donor passes away. And so, in a case like that, it's important to communicate with your family and make sure that this is the right choice for them as well. Because we recognize that it is it's a sacrifice that the donor is making, but it's also a sacrifice for the family because they don't have they don't get the cremated remains returned, or they don't have a plot in a cemetery that they can go to, and so we want it to be known what's going to take place, and that's part of the reason why we have the memorial service, so that it gives those family members some closure in knowing what a huge difference the donor has made to our students' education.
And regarding transplant, yes, the family can elect to decline donation if they wish, even though the decedent is registered with the DMV office. When there's a death in a hospital or in some type of nursing institution, we're contacted, we contact the family back. And if we contact them and they're unwilling to give us, there's like a 60+ questionnaire that we have to ask about the decedent's past history. If they're unwilling to give us that information, then for transplant, we're unable to continue on. Because our tissue processors that we send our tissue to, the bone, the skin and all, who process the tissue, their medical directors want to see some type of medical, social past history on the decedent. So it could happen with organ donation. It's life-saving. We're going to make every attempt we can because there's possibly 3 to 8 people that are going to live because of that. We're going to try to still pursue that if possible. But that, sometimes the families don't want to donate. So.
Should one include the donation on the will so that there is no question about what you decided?
Your question again? I'm sorry.
Including
Oh, in
the
the will?
choices in your will so that people know what to do and what you have chosen, and then there's no argument.
Well, sure, that and the directive would be great to fill out, but the best thing to do is to talk to your next of kin and let them know your wishes, because that is who we're going to be contacting to find out about your past medical history. Make sure that it's in accordance and agreement with the rest of your family. The problem with wills too is, the death could happen on the weekend and the will is in the attorney's office and nobody's going to see it till the weekend. And especially with transplant, we only have 24 hours that we have this small window of 24 hours that we can recover tissue in. So it's best just to talk to your next of kin. Yeah.
So if UCSD may not be interested, likely won't be interested in the body, if an autopsy was required because it's too long a wait between harvesting the body and the death. But how about the body donor, which I have on my driver's license, but that you would not be interested personally. Your organization would not be interested in body parts either if there was an autopsy required, or?
Oh no, that's not true. But see, that's what we try to pursue with our medical examiner's office. We try to talk to the family and the medical examiner's office, try to get pre-autopsy permission. So if we're unable to do that, we still, within a 24-hour time period, we can still recover tissue, even if they have to perform their autopsy. We can still recover tissue post-autopsy. But it has to be, if it's over the 24-hour limit for transplant, then we're unable to recover tissue, and that's corneas too. But there's still a possibility for research.
All right, but we can register with you.
Yes.
And sign up with your organization, and that wouldn't be necessary to have that delay, right?
No. So you could go to our website, www.lifesharing.org, or you can go to donatelife.org also.
Thank you.
Sure.
And just to clarify, we do accept donors to have an autopsy. We didn't used to, but we do now.
Good afternoon.
Okay. Hi.
Are you finished?
We're finished.
Okay. My questions involve human composting, which I heard about on NPR, which you may not have a lot of information on. My second question has to do with the amount of paperwork prior to body donation, both filled out by the person who's going to be a body and the person's family. So I called UCSD maybe 2.5 years ago, and I was told that even if you want to fill out 60, 65 pages, that after you're gone, the people who are left also have to fill out a great amount. And I would prefer not to give my loved ones a task to do during such a difficult and trying time.
We understand, and I know that it's kind of trying, because we may be calling late at night too. The problem is, 2 years in advance of your death, a lot of things can change. You can, get cancer, you can get hepatitis B. I mean, things can develop past that time. So we want to hear something current. What's been going on? We want to hear from the attending physician. We want to hear what has been going on recently, at least within the last 72 hours. The human composting, I don't know much of that. I don't know if,
I don't have much information as far as human composting goes. Sorry. The closest thing that I know about that would be similar to that would be a green burial, where there's generally no preparation done. The remains are put in something similar to like a wicker basket that's going to be biodegradable and then buried in, because of the green cemetery that's here in California. Then the way it works is it looks like an open field. It doesn't look like a standard cemetery. It's got all the natural flora and fauna there. And the burial is done so that really everything just returns back to the earth. There's no headstones. There's a GPS marker put with each burial so that your family can actually go there. They hand out a little GPS monitor and they can find their way to where you were buried. But it's very natural. There's no formaldehyde used in the embalming. There's no preservation, so that everything you would decompose very quickly and naturally and go back into the soil.
What's the cost for that?
I have no idea. Sorry.
And I wanted to answer Keith answered your question regarding the paperwork for life sharing, and I'd like to answer for the body donation program as well. So if you complete the paperwork ahead of time and send it to us, which it's about 14 pages, although most of it is reading and initialing. There's one page where you have to fill out vital statistic information and one page where you have to sign, but everything else is just initialing the page that you read it. So it's not the most simple paperwork, but it's not too excessive. But once it's completed and sent to us and registered, your family won't have to ever do it.
Will or will not?
They will not have to. Yeah.
It's really quite
That's not what I was told by the person I spoke to at UCSD.
Well, with donation for organs and tissue, that's going to be different than whole body donation. Yeah, with whole body donation, you fill out the paperwork and send it to us. We register you, send you an acceptance letter and a donor card, and then when the time comes that you pass away, your family notifies us. But they don't have to do any paperwork.
Also, one more thing with the green burial. If you grab one of the folders and send me an email, I'll do the research for you and find out if I can get some pricing. Okay.
This question is about tissue donation. And if someone has been on chemotherapy, can you then not use the tissue? Or if someone is in advanced stage and has been ill for a few years, can you use anything of their body for tissue donation?
That's a good question. So for tissue, bone, skin, cardiovascular, if there's any type of active cancers going on, that would rule you out for that type of tissue donation, but there's still a possibility for corneas. Both corneas can be transplanted, depending on the type of cancer. We got to look at lymphomas and leukemias, because there's a possibility that could transmit into the recipient. So, but yeah, if it's chemotherapy, that's for transplant, it would be a rule out, but probably for research, it would still be a possibility with Scott's program.
For someone that's 95, would their cornea be useful at all? Or should you really want someone younger?
No, that's a great question. Usually cornea, for cornea transplantation, the surgeons would like to have as young as possible, and it's got the better cell growth and the better endothelial cells, so the recipient can see better. But they can actually go up to age, I think they've transplanted up to age 70 for transplantable corneas. But for 95, over the age of 70 and over, they usually will recover the whole eye for research purposes. And that's of the sclera and the whole globe. And they use that for educational and research purposes for new students trying to recover corneas. So, tremendous need.
I have a question here. Two questions actually. Do I have to register with the DMV for donations, or can I do it in another way?
That's probably the easiest. Well, the easiest is to go if you're computer savvy, is to go online and go to donatelife.org. And go to that website, sign as a big red dot. You just click on that, it asks you some general information, and then you register.
And then you need all the information, do you do that online?
You can do that online, right from your home.
And what about the sign from the DMV, the little thing from the DMV, you don't have to have it?
No, so if you're gonna renew your license, soon in the future here, or you can do it there too.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I didn't want to do it when I renewed my license because I wanted more information.
Sure, and what's nice about going online is you can put in there's a comment section, and you can actually specify what type of organs and tissues you'd like to donate. And it could be either transplant or research or both or whatever you'd like.
And what if you want it open and just anything?
Yes, that's fine, yeah, then you don't have to put anything, that'll just, the way that we understand that, if there's no other comments, that you or your loved one is open to any type of donation.
Okay, and now, do you always return the body? Or are there other possibilities?
We always return the body, we don't keep the body on the transplant side. We send, after we're done with our procedure, then we send the body to a local funeral home for either cremation or burial.
So then we put our wishes where we want our body to go.
Right, so, if something does happen to you or your loved one in the hospital, they're gonna ask you which funeral home that you'd like to use still. Now, for a whole body donation, do you wanna talk about that real quick?
For whole body donation, we do not return the body. We do the cremation ourselves and scatter the cremated remains at sea.
And one more question. I donated my brain to the Alzheimer's Research Center at UCSD. How would that combine?
So, for the Alzheimer's Disease Research Center, usually if a donor is coming to our program, then the ADRC will recover the brain first. But if it's going to be for a transplant, then the transplant is going to be recovering the organ or tissues first.
So it has to be either or?
No, it could be both, but it's just one needs to be done sooner than the other. So the organ or tissue recovery will need to take place, and then afterwards, then the brain can be donated to the Alzheimer's Disease Research Center.
Are there brain transplants these days? No. Yeah.
I work with a veterinary profession, and I noticed an article recently about alternative to cremation, which is referred to as AH. I think that was the chemical that was used. Are you familiar with that? They say it's a more green alternative.
Right, that's similar to like the liquefaction process that I was talking about. It's not available for humans yet in the United States.
It is not available for humans?
Not yet, but there is a funeral home in Florida that is working on installing that system, and hopefully it will be something that's more widespread.
And actually, donors to the University of California, Los Angeles School of Medicine body donation program, those donors then undergo alkaline hydrolysis. So UCLA has a machine and has been operating it for several years, but there's no funeral homes in California that have it.
What do you get when you do that? Ashes or nothing?
I mean, well, there's ashes in it.
I have a question. When I go to various funerals, I see these beautiful caskets, and I'm sure that they're very expensive. Does anyone have a rent-a-casket?
Yes, actually, we do have rental caskets. We use those in the case of a cremation, a viewing with a cremation. And the way a rental casket works is the outer shell is the same. It's used about 15 times, for like 15 services, the outer shell. The interior, though, is actually a cremation unit. It's got the same kind of lining that you would find in any other standard casket. And it is taken out and completely replaced every time the casket is used. The two that our funeral home offers and that most of the funeral home offers are both woods. One is an oak and one is a cherry. And they're really nice looking caskets. You wouldn't know that they weren't actual burial caskets.
But you can't use that for a regular burial?
You would have to, you could, but you would have to purchase some other type of container to be buried in.
A cardboard box?
Some cemeteries will bear that, yes, absolutely.
In terms of the Memorial Society, if I were a member, would it be, is it a one-stop shop so that once I died, my family members would simply call and say, do you then handle it at that point in terms of the orchestrating the everything that had been determined in advance?
No, each year, the negotiated prices and the mortuaries that are our partnering mortuaries are posted on our website. And so you would need to choose then which mortuary and which price you would like to use, because the mortuaries, they do vary in price as determining which service it is. So you and your family still has a choice based on right now we have 11 mortuaries that are participating. And like a direct cremation goes from $695 up to $1,200, depending on where it is. The most expensive direct cremation is in Poway. And so people from Poway may not want to come down to La Mesa, so they just may want to use it there. So you still have freedom of choice, and all of that is posted on our website.
Thank you.
I have two questions.
Directly into it.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Two questions. I have all my teeth, but I have probably at least a dozen gold crowns. What can I do with those to donate them? Do I have to specify removal? And who knows how much I'll have when I die? Maybe I'd want to leave those to my kids. So how do we take care of that?
As the funeral home, we're not allowed to remove teeth. For an embalmer, that's considered beyond what our license allows us to do. However, your family can speak with a dentist and have a dentist come in and remove them, and then they would be returned to your family. But as far as the funeral home goes, we're not allowed to actually remove teeth.
My second question concerns among the documents that UCSD provides, there's a funny little phrase that says that I have to consent to what appears to me to be selling of my parts. And that somehow bothers me. I can't quite articulate why, but I feel that if this maybe is dealing with Henrietta Lacks, the so-called immortality of Henrietta Lacks, whose cancer cells were sold worldwide and probably made the labs millions of bucks. But I'm just wondering, if I refuse to sign that consent, will UCSD reject my donation?
So we don't ever, it's actually illegal to charge for something that's been donated, a body part that has been donated. There are organizations that do charge a fee to use the donor. So there's several in California that are operating that we don't recommend, that are for-profit companies but they don't actually charge for a fee to do that. We don't ever sell any body parts. That would be illegal.
But then why would you have a phrase that says if all right, let's say we add expenses to this, you wouldn't object?
I'd have to look at the phrase to tell you. So,
but that's your phrase, it's not mine. I mean,
I'd have to look at the form to actually see which part you're talking about and explain it to you. But to answer that appropriately, it's 14 pages. I don't have it memorized, but I can sure. I know that gentleman had one, so we could find it and talk about it.
Is it online?
Yeah, it's online.
if someone dies, you need to call UCSD to, the spouse would need to call UCSD to notify you that there was a death, that the person had died and that they were donating their body, as I understand. But then in the case of organs, is it also necessary for the spouse to call a phone number to notify you regarding the organs? And there's one more question. We were told that if someone is older dies at one of the meetings here, if someone who is older dies at home, it's not necessary to call 911 or the coroner, that the doctor can just sign the death certificate without it going through that system. And in that case, does it fall on your doctor to notify you for organ body parts? And again, still the spouse to call UCSD.
Okay, well, those are a lot of loaded questions. Let's back up. So we'll go to the home death first. So the best thing to do is usually if there's a nurse in attendance, the nurse can contact 911 and then they're going to direct from there. That's probably the best way, just to make sure everybody's safe and, you know, if the coroner needs to get involved and if not. So the best thing to do is just call 911 and then have the paramedics respond and go from there, dude.
Yeah. Okay, so basically, if somebody dies at home but they're under hospice care, you don't have to call the medical examiner. But if they're not under hospice care, then you will need to, and then you do that by calling 911. So if they're at home, if they're under hospice care, you do not have to call the medical examiner or the police. But if they are not under hospice care, you will have to.
But you have to call you, and we have to call him.
Well, you guys get notified from the medical examiner, right? We
Yes,
do not.
we get reports. Sure, we get reports twice a day from the medical examiner's office, and then on every hospital death, we're notified too. Going back to the organ case, you asked about organ donation. So solid organs, heart, liver, kidneys, and all. That has to take place inside a hospital because they have to declare the person brain dead. Then they got to be on a ventilator system, so that means no blood from the neck up to the brain. So we're going to get notified on that from the hospital. So that shouldn't be a problem getting notified there. Your first question though, I can't remember what you had stated.
That you had to call UCSD,
Oh.
but then did somebody need to notify you if you die at home? Does somebody need to call you to say there's organs if 911 is not involved? And as the gentleman said, there was hospice care, so you didn't need to use 911.
So, yeah, like I said, if you're in a hospital or if you're a medical examiner's case, we're going to pretty much be notified, so the family wouldn't have to do any type of notifications. If you're in a hospice or at home, yes, there you would probably want to contact.
They would do it.
Yes.
And the driver's license donor thing is, does that, anybody notify you when you have it on the driver's license?
No, but that's a good trigger, because a lot of times we'll contact the family and they'll say, well, we really didn't know what a loved one wanted to do, and then they look at the driver's license and see the pink dot, so it's a good little trigger for us.
I think about calling the medical examiner, I think that question came up, we were talking about the End of Life Option Act. And after someone ingests the medication and dies, it's not necessary to call 911. Just call the Memorial Society. Well, in full disclosure, I've been a member of the Memorial Society for years and years, and it really does work. And it's a bargain, in my opinion. But I do want to ask about this body part, trade in body parts. What is that about? And related to that, I met a woman at one of these meetings who said she has a new ankle and she got an ankle bone. What kind of things can you get from, what kind of body parts can you get and how do you get them, I guess is the question. Anybody?
Well, sure, for transplant, we're looking at the bones. So we have arm bones, leg bones, hip bones, and those are used for spinal surgeries, all kinds of sports medicine injuries. Also what they're doing now, they're injecting stem cells into these bone products to enhance the healing process. So there's a lot of great stuff going on, a lot of great research going on. With the skin, we're recovering the skin, the upper portion of the skin from the front and back. And that's to help patients with burns here in town, and also regionally and internationally, depending on when it's needed. There's full thickness skin, and that's to help with all types of big surgeries, like if you have abdominal surgery and they're unable to close the wound in your abdomen, they'll use the full thickness skin to patch and make sure that there's no infection spread because of the open wound. So, and in cardiovascular, I think I talked a little bit about it with the heart, 2 valves in the heart that can be recovered to help 2 others in adults and in children, and with saphenous veins. When the attempt has already been tried in a surgery to recover the patient's own saphenous veins, then they need to have banked saphenous veins to go to salvage the leg, usually. So corneas, of course, to to help with eyesight, see again. So life-saving and enhancing, also with tissue. It's, Faye had mentioned ankle. That's enhancing someone's life so they can walk again and they can, get around and work again. So there are tremendous things going on out there. So in the transplant field.
But do you have to buy them, or can you, if you need an ankle, do you just phone 911 ankle and get it?
Yeah, I wish it was that easy. And I mean, being in the field, people ask me that, hey, get me a new liver, and I can't do that. There's different procedures. And you have to go through your attending physician, and then they refer you off to your orthopedic surgeon to get the surgeries done. So, but of course, there's no buying and selling of organs and tissues. That's illegal. Question?
You mentioned kind of an age limit on corneas. How is that for bones and organs and so on?
Wow, you guys have been in tune. Have you been looking at our website? This is great. Age for bone is usually, we'll recover up to age 80. And that's usually in a male, female. Ideally, a lot of the tissue processors that we send the tissue to will accept bone up to age about 65 or 70. So.
Okay, I have another question, just to clarify. If I want to donate for tissue and so on, you have 24-hour limit and the 60 questions.
Yes. Wow.
If, on the other hand, I donate this gentleman a full body, there is none of that, but does he transfer any usable things to?
Possibly for skin. So we can go to any age for skin, and that's burn patients, split thickness skin for burn patients, or full thickness skin. So we can go to any age for that. Of course, we're looking at weight limits and a few other things there, but after that, then there's a possibility for research tissue. Yes, so you can do both.
So if I start over here, there are no 60 questions, which, my kids couldn't answer them anyway.
There's still some questions, but not as lengthy as for transplant. Research, it's probably about 30 to 40 questions.
Well, for us, it's basically one, but
okay,
1 or 2. But
yeah,
for you guys, it's more.
Yeah, so for research, it's not as lengthy. They're not going to ask as many questions.
Okay, thank you.
Great. It is confusing. That's why don't even try to figure it out. Just talk to your next of kin, and then we'll deal with it at that point. Yeah, there's a lot to know. And it changes all the time. So I'm going to tell you something today and it could change tomorrow.
What's the situation on synthetic tissue or growing human tissue in the lab?
Basically cartilage. They're having some success with cartilage graft, but for transplant for like the organs and the bone and the skin, that's still in the future, maybe 5 years out, maybe 10. And then of course they're trying to do the 3D printing and there's all kinds of things going on there. Everybody's doing a lot of research there too. There is some synthetic grafts used for certain like bladder slings and things like that, but you know, I mean, depends. I don't know. I've seen a lot of recalls too, so I don't know. We'll see. Any other questions? Somebody we have another question?
Lady in the balcony.
Stand right here. Stand out.
The lady with the hat.
Thank you. Okay, I want to make sure you're here. I'm just confirming that what you said about organ tissue donation, somebody needs to be hooked up, and because otherwise the tissue degrades too quickly. And I assume that means the internal organs, not so much the skin or the others, or does that apply to all of those?
Yeah, any type of transplant, tissue, organ, or tissue. Yeah, we're looking at that to be maintained in the hospital ICU and
So
has to be heart beating.
needs to be in the hospital to be
Yes.
able to successfully transplant. Okay. So if somebody dies at home, that's probably not going to be happening.
It depends. Now we're getting into a lot of other complicated things like refrigeration times and all kinds of things, but that's what we worry about. So yes, it does take a lot of different things to come together to make tissue donation happen.
Right.
All we do is try. We try to maximize donations.
Because that would be my first choice, would be, to any usable organs in a time frame, but nobody knows exactly how they're going to die, so you don't know if that's going to work out. And then theoretically, you could move on then to whole body donation, which doesn't have as strict requirements, but does have some, obviously.
Yes.
So, and then, okay, so that's that question, but I'm going to switch gears completely here.
Okay.
And ask another question, which actually doesn't apply to me at all. But I know there are some faiths where they want people to be buried within 24 hours. How does that figure into all of the things that all of you do? Because that would, so anyway, I'm sort of going to put that out there in case people have issues with that, because might mean some people can't be donors if their religion dictates that they've got to be buried in 24 hours.
Very few religions are against it, so there might be a couple of American Indian groups and maybe a Japanese group or two. But yeah, everybody else is on board with it, and usually they'll, the minister, the chaplain will speak with the family and discuss it with them. And usually it's usually not a factor.
So it would be extended if necessary if there's going to be transplant or potentially other things going on. Okay, I was just curious.
Or the family just outright refuses.
Yeah.
So I mean, we try.
Thank you.
Another question, one more question.
We got one more question, Faye says.
Yeah. Well, I can stay here as long as you can.
Once you submit the completed paperwork to UCSD, do you get an acknowledgement that you did get it and that you are accepted, or what?
Yes, we send an acknowledgement letter that says you're accepted, as well as a donor card. So, there are times where people have mailed it in and we never received it. So if somebody hasn't heard back from us within 3 weeks, they need to call us.
So you cannot complete the form online and send it directly online?
No, you have to print it off. It has to be a physical signature. You can scan it and email it in, or you can fax it in, but it can't just be done online.
You can scan it and email it back?
Yes, after you physically signed it and not a witness, then you can scan it and email it back.
And the email address is on your website and all of that?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
I already questioned out. You're welcome to stay. I think our program today has been so informative. I've learned a lot myself. So I want to thank, let's see who these wonderful people are. Deanne, thank you for all that interesting information that we never knew, I'm sure. Scott, thank you very much. We would hope to get a simplified process, because right now it sounds complicated, but I think we're all interested. And John, welcome to the San Diego Memorial Society. As a donor and a member, I'm very happy to have you on board. And Keith, thank you very much for conducting this and giving us all this information. It has been a great pleasure to hear from you. Thank you.